Pam quite a bit in the past, both through her participation in some of our steering committees and on our matching grant program. So great relationship with Pam, fabulous to work with. I'm here today. I was asked to come talk a little bit about our Welcome Center program that the state's been managing since the early 80s. What we've done in the past, how we initially set up the program, and then I have some interesting stats I wanted to share, which would probably apply to your community, and a little bit more detail on the return on investment of having a Welcome Center in your community. I do want to preface this by saying that, the state is not involved. I know that there are some things that the community needs to decide in terms of location and funding, but I just want to share the information I have to help you in making an informed decision. And I'm happy to hang out afterwards and answer any questions that you may have. So I always have to start with a little bit of an overview spiel as to what the CTO does when I'm out in the community. The official tourism office was created in 2000 as part of the Governor's Office of Economic Development and International Trade. We're funded through gaming revenues, so gambling revenues. We're not funded through lodging tax or anything other than. And last year we were funded at a little over $17 million. Our main goals at the CTO are to increase visitor spending and thus increase tax revenues, and then make sure that we're maxing out our marketing ROI. A lot of folks say we don't see a lot of Colorado advertising. Well, that's because we don't advertise in state. Our dollars, we've learned through experience, are better spent marketing both domestically and internationally outside of Colorado. But we do work quite a bit with local destinations, DMOs, CVBs within the state to help them with their marketing efforts. But you probably don't see our commercials unless you're watching a national network or you're on YouTube. To give you a bit of a base to go off of where the state's at with tourism, and I apologize, these are 2014 numbers. We do a big research study every year, but it involves collecting sales tax from around the state, and it takes a long time to compile. So we'll have 2015 numbers in June. But 2014 was a great year for tourism in Colorado. We saw over 71 million visitors, which was a 7.4% increase over the previous year. And that was about 5% or more than the rest of the state. So we're not the rest of the state, excuse me, the rest of the country. So we're definitely moving ahead. Tourism spending was close to $19 billion, which is a huge economic driver for Colorado. And subsequently, tax revenue was $1.1 billion. The industry is also responsible for conservatively over 155,000 jobs. So again, big economic driver for Colorado. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions around the state is that Colorado is beautiful. We have so much gorgeous open public space. People are going to come here anyway. Well, this was a lesson that the state learned back when Tabor passed and we lost our tourism funding and the state went dark for several years. We did no advertising, we were not inviting folks to come to Colorado, and we lost about 30% of our market share. So it's a bitter pill to swallow, but we're known nationally as what not to do. The state that did made the wrong moves as far as tourism promotion. So, but it's a lesson learned. I pulled some numbers from your local area to kind of bring home this huge visitation number and this huge sales tax number. Otero County saw over 20 million in visitor spending in 2014, and you can see what that broke down to in state and local sales tax. I also pulled Prowers numbers because that is our closest state welcome center, currently in Lamar, and you guys were pretty comparable in terms of visitor spending. But sometimes it kind of helps me, I think, to break it down and look at it by county. This information is also available on our Colorado.com website.
Ask a question?
Sure.
That 452 mil, or the 20 million, I mean, they're saying for Otero County now. How are they saying that is visitors' money? I mean, is that total sales revenue for the county, or is that, how's that money?
Sure, great question. That would be lodging, certain activities, and dining. And there is a divider there that the research firm that we contract with uses in order to make that more of an accurate number. But that's not overall spending in general. That's mostly focused on the lodging industry. Yeah. Sure.
The local sales tax, 452 million, I guess how does the 20.2 million visitor spending translate into sales taxes of 452 million? And
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm sorry, I realize those numbers are a little skewed. Let me get back to that in just a minute. Okay. So I wanted to talk about our State Welcome Center program, and we'll go back to sales tax numbers. But I wanted to share how our program started and then how we're currently running it around the state. Back in the early 80s, when the tourism office was not yet officially designated by the state, we had a volunteer tourism board, and it was run mostly by volunteers. But they did do a pretty intensive survey with the tourism industry throughout the state and found out that the two major goals that the board should focus on should be marketing Colorado, both domestic and internationally. That's kind of a no-brainer. But then also to implement these visitation centers, to share accurate information, to try to encourage visitor spending, and to just make sure that the Colorado visitor had a great experience, offering hospitality through our travel counselors. So in '84, this master plan came out. There was state funding, both in partnership with CDOT and some of the local communities that CTO partnered with, and we created 8 centers. We're now at 10 centers today, but back at the time, we knew that operations-wise, we really wanted to utilize volunteers to run the program, which was a huge money saver, and I'll talk about that in just a second. We needed to develop a comprehensive brochure database, so we were in touch with the latest and greatest information, both in the regional travel communities and statewide, and we knew we wanted to track the visitor. And I've talked to multiple research firms. This is invaluable information. We're able to tell a lot about where the visitor's going, how our marketing efforts are being received, and what we can do to enhance their stay and increase expenditures by tracking the visitor. So our first center opened shortly after the master plan came out, and that was in Trinidad, way down on the southern border. Shortly after that, we opened a center in Burlington in partnership with CDOT. And today, again, we have 10 state centers, and I'll just name them really quick in case this map's kind of hard to see from the back of the room. We're in Trinidad, Lamar, Burlington, Julesburg, Fort Collins, Dinosaur, Fruita, and Cortez. Our 2 latest centers to open were Alamosa and Silverthorne, and those are a partnership through the local community and the state. But they are not state-funded centers because they were opened after the master plan was created and the funding was available. Lamar, which would be your closest center other than Trinidad, did see a record year last year. They saw about 35,000 folks, and that's a record since they opened in 1991. So very good travel year. Here are some important stats when looking at the return on investment of opening a welcome center. And I hate to say it, this information is dated. I'm working to get this updated for this summer travel season, but these numbers were pulled back in 2008. So with inflation and all that great stuff, I think these numbers could be a little bit more accurate. But we did learn that when folks stop at a visitor center, they stay 2.4 days longer in the state. They spend a little over $370 more in state per person. And then 1 out of 3 or a third of folks that stopped gained information that would influence them to make a return trip, not necessarily to that town or that area, but to the state of Colorado. We also are able, like I mentioned before, to track visitor data that we use in our marketing efforts. We collect email addresses. Sometimes we provide a visitor gift to incentivize people to leave their email address, and we're able to communicate with them after the fact, some events, upcoming things they can be involved in, and more information about the state year-round. So these are our important numbers, and I had mentioned before, just when I was talking to in the audience, being a state-run department, we're constantly having to justify what our ROI is. Dollars out to dollars in, what we're gaining from this expensive marketing plan that the state's investing in, and so I completely understand you need to look at your bottom line and see what makes sense for your community. But I think these numbers can be very helpful. Not only are we able to tell how we influence folks' time in Colorado by what they spend, but we're also able to look at what type of visitors utilizing our state welcome centers. And we did learn that a majority, close to 40%, is over 54 years old, which you may think, okay, well that makes sense. Mobile's the future, you know, it's the baby boomers and the older generations that are stopping at the welcome centers. Not necessarily true. This is an overall average among 10 centers. It varies center to center. This is probably the most, this is just kind of a 30,000 foot overview. I will share with you, because it's a question that always comes up, why visitor centers are, you know, destinations, even printing material, everything's GPS, everything's mobile. Well, that I can tell you for a fact, without trying to sway you one way or another, that's not true. We do know that 49% of American travelers use hard copy collateral in deciding where they're traveling and what activities they're going to pursue. The average traveler uses about 40 different avenues to plan their trip, whether that be mobile, a visitor's guide, brochures, rat cards, things like that. So it's interesting to see, you know, in the age of mobile, how there is still that need for that personal touch and that hard copy material. And we do a lot of research. We print well over 500,000 visitor guides a year, and we are constantly testing these numbers to make sure that the need is there. And I can assure you it is. I also think it's so important, you know, the state does a lot of outreach in spot markets and national markets across the country. But, you know, this is really one of the state's only ways of touching the visitor once they arrive in Colorado, and it's really about the personal touch. I think a lot of times people are traveling, they're looking for a local to ask in terms of where the best place to eat is, what there is to do in town, and that's one thing we offer with our travel counselors. So I know this is a pretty content-heavy slide, and I apologize. I was trying to pull some numbers for you last night, and I'm willing to share these with Pam. She can send them out to anyone that wants a copy of this. But in pulling information from the Lamar Welcome Center, I'm able to tell you that travelers coming through on Highway 50, it's about a 50-50 split. So 42% we found are only visiting Colorado, which is great. It means that their stay in Colorado is going to be longer than if they're visiting multiple states. And about 58% were on their way to another state, or were including another state in their vacation plans. One of the cool things that I highlighted here that I think is interesting to note is that more than 52% of folks that came through finalized some or all of their lodging arrangements during the trip. Lodging is a big economic driver, as you know, and that's one of the biggest expenditures for folks that are either flying in or driving across the state. I believe, and this number may be a little off, hopefully we'll get some new research this summer, but between 73 and 80% of folks that visit Colorado are driving across the state. This is considered the drive market. These are not the folks that are flying into a destination and not traveling much besides that. And so the point of our welcome centers is to hit that drive market. We're at all of the major highways and interstates in and out of the state. You can see we're kind of like the face of a clock. When we first decided on these locations, we knew that collectively these interstates and highways accounted for about 77% of all the traffic driving around the state. So that was important. And I can't encourage you enough. I don't have Highway 50, you know, drive numbers for you, but that would be interesting to see how much of a opportunity is there, because it's a great benefit sitting on a major roadway, and that's one thing that you definitely have going for you. So besides that 52% that finalized lodging, over 71% finalized some or all of their activities during the trip. So this is really where we have the most opportunity to influence the visitor. 65% stopped primarily to collect information, which is great news, because we all know when you're on a long road trip, you want to use the facilities, you want water, you want restrooms. 35% stopped just for the facilities. That's okay. We're happy to pull that traffic in and try to sway them to spend longer in the community and give them ideas of what to do when they're on their way through. When I say 35% was looking at facilities, broken down, a majority are looking for restrooms. Next are water fountains, and then finally a big one is in the summer, shade, a picnic area, somewhere to stretch their legs, pet run, if you can be near a park, an open space, if there's any play equipment there for kids, all the better. Those are all well appreciated by the traveler. The average stay of folks coming through Lamar was 6.4 nights. And primarily they're there to visit parks and recreation sites. So being near a historic landmark or an open space or a state park or monument is also very beneficial. And then about a quarter we're looking for city activities, restaurant, dining, nightlife, things like that. So, I mean, that's a lot of information. I just wanted to touch on a few things that I think are very important in deciding how you want to operate a center. First of all, to decide what your hours and what your schedule is going to be. Our state centers are open 361 days a year, from 8 to 6 in prime travel season and from 8 to 5 in the slower seasons. We do leave our restroom facilities unlocked. A lot of times that's a separate area of the building. So folks can utilize that after our travel counselors have gone home. We also supply maps and brochures for people to pick up outside the building so we can still give them that information when no one's there. The best thing about our program at the state level that I can't take credit for because this was set up long before my time, but we are run primarily by volunteers. We have paid managers in all of the centers, but then we have about 500 volunteer travel counselors throughout the state that operate in shifts of 2 and are constantly training as to what's the latest and greatest in Colorado and just really like interacting with the visitor. They're great ambassadors for the state, and it really makes our program possible on what is a pretty small budget considering our operations. So with that, obviously, volunteers can be a different animal than paid staff, but training is very important. Something to think about. Are you going to carry material just from the local community, or do you want material from the whole travel region? Is it going to be a pay-to-play situation? Do you automatically get your material distributed at the center for being, in the town, or is there a charge involved? Also, how are you going to look at your success? Does this need to fund itself? Are there advertising options that you can make available to the community? I can share with you what our center is doing. We've had a lot of luck with video ads and have been able to pump some money back into the program, which has been great. As far as space goes, when the state is deciding on what would make a great location, we don't want to go much below 2,000 square feet, and it really just depends on the building. Some are bigger than others. All of our centers are different animals completely, and it gets a little complicated. But storage is huge. You're going to take that into account. And then what are you going to offer your traveler? Again, are the restrooms going to be available even after hours? Free coffee, Wi-Fi, do they have access to a printer? What are the visitor services that you're willing to offer and that will fit into your budget? When looking at site selection criteria, and I brought a copy of the state's Welcome Center designation application, which is pretty detailed, but just to pull what I think are some of the most important things to share with you. Again, location. This is number one. It's gotta be easy on, easy off the major interstate. If you have a roundabout, even construction, if signage is not on point, you're not gonna see those visitors. And I'll use Trinidad as an example. CDOT changed the exit, which was typically leading straight to our Welcome Center it's not as convenient now, and we lost about a third of our traffic. So that's pretty tough. Again, easy on, easy off. Parking is huge. Who do you want to see? If you're looking for motor coach traffic, and that might be something we can look into, how many motor coaches are you seeing come through on Highway 50, then you're going to need motor coach parking. Or if you want to make it available for truckers coming through, they need to have that parking, and it needs to be large and convenient. Signage is huge. You cannot have enough signage. And then again, facilities and recreation. What is there for the traveler to do, and what type of incentive do they have to pull off and stop at your center if they're not just looking for material on La Junta? So again, and I mean, I feel like I kind of just dumped a bunch of information on you, but I would say take a hard look at your goals. Again, budget and funding, obviously. But are you looking for more of a community center to promote local downtown businesses? Are you looking for ways to partner with the community? Again, retail and advertising There's a lot of potential to make a little money in the center. And then how are you going to use that visitor data? It really is invaluable, and I think it can help you with a lot of your tourism marketing efforts. So with that, here's my contact information, and I will hang around after the meeting if you want my card or if you have any questions, and can open it up to the group.
Could you go back one slide, please?
Okay. All right, well, if there's no immediate questions, the sales, yep.
I've got one. Lamar to me would be similar, obviously, trying to come up with an exact comparison would be pretty difficult, but I'm trying to figure out, like, when they have that many visitors stop at the Welcome Center there, what are the local attractions there that they try to get them to stay overnight for?
Well, they'll refer them to the downtown area. There's a new bike trail, several events throughout the year. And I think, you know, a lot of it too is some of the natural space. Birding's huge in that part of the state. Bent's Fort, obviously, some of the other historical sites in the area.
The birding thing, and I am totally unfamiliar with that. I assume that's seasonal, correct?
It is seasonal, yeah. And Lamar has a few events throughout the year. One of, probably their most well-known is the Snow Goose Festival. But it is a very niche community. And one thing that our office is doing is we have a dedicated agritourism department. And agritourism is basically focusing on all the grassroots offerings in the state. So distilleries, craft beer, farm-to-table experiences, dude ranches, and that's something that I know our agritourism program has been focusing on, is reaching those groups of people that are interested in. Yeah. Oh, sir?
If you get designated as a welcome center, does the state pick up all the expenses of the welcome center?
Thank you for asking, because I realized I touched on that, but I didn't give you a whole lot of information. So the application process right now, how it works is we look at the existing space, the existing visitor traffic, and the potential. And then it's an application process. Once it's filled out, we have a committee that goes through that information, votes whether or not it's a go to be voted on for final approval by the CTO board. It is a fairly selective process. Moving forward, and this is the model that our Alamos and Silverthorne Welcome Centers are set up with, we work with them in terms of training and promoting them both on Colorado.com, in the vacation guide. We include them in our events and meetings, and they're really part of our team and our Welcome Center staff, but they are not funded by the state at all. Yes?
Would you please review again or go further into what kind of retail opportunities some of the welcome centers
Sure.
have made available?
Yeah, so our program's a little different. We have some regulations that keep us from from creating these large retail centers. But right now in Cortez and, I don't know how great this map is from the back of the room. But in Cortez and Fort Collins, we do have small retail or gift shop areas as part of the Welcome Center. In Fort Collins, we contract with a company called Alpine Arts that's local to the area that does all of our buying and stocking. A percentage of our retail sales go back into the city or the Fort Collins CBB, and the Welcome Center sees a small percentage of that. In Cortez, we partner with the city and the local museum to run a gift shop, but those profits are not coming back to the state. It's more of a moneymaker for the city. But we do have an advertising program in the center, and we run video ads on flat screens during all the hours that we're open. And it's a very low-cost advertising opportunity. We charge based on traffic per center and views per 8 hours. And I can share information on that as well if you're interested.
Has there been a study done between Pueblo and Lamar on Highway 50 concerning the number of people that pass through that highway?
Not by the tourism office, but I would say probably by the DOT, and that's information that would be useful, I
Do
think.
they share that with you?
Yes, yeah, we can.
I'm sure they do. I know about every 2-3 years, I see counters put out here on Highway 50, and CDOT's doing it, so I'm sure those numbers are available.
So do they just count the number of vehicles that go through? I mean, we might not know what the end result of that vehicle passing is, but they,
You bet.
they just do a physical
They
count.
just do
Right.
a count of all the numbers of vehicles. It's not broken down in any format, but the number.
Does the Colorado Welcome, your group, will they, for people that are not actually associated with you, will they provide training for local centers that aren't part of the Colorado Local Center? Will they help?
Well, that would be my job. And if you are designated a state center, then obviously, yes, that would be part of it. But, you know, I would definitely like to offer my resources as you move forward, how we can help, whether it be with sharing the state brochure database so you can help get started, or, you know, even sharing how we train our travel counselors. I'm fine being transparent with that and sharing any information that I can assist with. I don't know if I would be able to do the physical training, but I could, yeah, talk with you a little bit more about that. Sir?
Kelly, when I went on to the website 2 weeks ago and looked, most of the information that I saw was 2007 and 8. Is there, and I think you alluded to it, are you updating, or is there, you know, particularly when I'm curious of the numbers count and all the different welcome centers, I'm sure that's changed somewhat since 2007 or 8. Are there more current numbers that are available than what's on the website?
I made a couple of copies of a annual visitation spreadsheet that shows annual visitation for all of our centers dating back from when they opened, and I'm happy to give you a copy of that. Are you talking about the industry partners portion of Colorado.com? You were looking at research, or?
Just the numbers of people that, you know, that pass through, because I see, you know, from Lamar being 35,000, when I looked, I think it was Fruita, it was over 200,000 came through, and I'm just curious as to what those numbers currently are at each of the different welcome center locations.
Yes, I don't have a slide, but I have that information to share with you. And then I had mentioned this earlier, our last Welcome Center study, which really looked at what each visitor was looking for in each location and a little bit more about the demographic of the visitor in each location, that's old, that's 2008. And that's something that we're looking to update this summer. The sales tax numbers, which obviously I made the mistake of inputting incorrectly last night now that I'm looking at them, are updated up to 2014 until this June. And if you go to the industry partners portion of Colorado.com, you can look up tourism-related jobs, income, and then direct expenditures and local and state sales tax per county. And that would be 2014 totals.
Go ahead.
Wait, right here?
One of the reasons that we're concerned about the figures, if they are even 5 years old, but mostly a lot of them are 10 years old figure. And people today, and I hear it all the time, they don't need a visitor center anymore because they've got their cell phones or their smartphones. I'm wondering how much of an impact that truly is, because I feel that we do need a visitor center. But an awful lot of people that I'm visiting with are talking about, well, the smartphone is what's going to be the way that people travel in the future. So, any remarks on that, I'd appreciate.
Well, I think I would just kind of refer back
What's
to
the question?
She was asking, with all of the mobile trip planning going on, if visitor centers were still relevant. And I would definitely say that they are. Again, we know from a recent study that about 49% do use the hard copy trip planning material, whether they order a vacation guide or they're looking to pick up brochures in visitor centers, strictly oriented in doing so. Obviously, GPS is huge as far as directional services go. We found that in a lot of these more rural areas, and we are located in the more outlying parts of the state, sometimes GPS does lead you wrong. We also partner with CDOT to have road condition cameras, and so when there is an accident or adverse weather, people can stop there for information and updates, so. But no, I guess to answer your question kind of in a roundabout way, I mean, I do see them as being very relevant. We have seen a drop off in the past 5 years of destinations printing material, but a lot of them have started doing so again after realizing that, was beneficial. Right here in the back, and then.
Can you be specific on the criteria for the application? You alluded to it earlier, but do you have specifics on that?
Yeah, I have a pretty detailed application I can share with you, but I would say the main points we look at are the actual facilities, building size, and then existing traffic. So whether it be that potential overall drive number that is passing through, or if there's a business in town that maybe tracks visitation, we can use those numbers to help to help determine what the potential there is.
Do you look at parking at all?
Yes, parking's huge, and that would be part of the facilities evaluation, right? Yeah.
Just to comment on the last thing you were talking about, I noticed with my visitors, if I have brochures online, a lot of people just want them emailed to them now. So I think, you know, some of your more pertinent information, if it could be in email form, that's really beneficial. They still want it and they want to be able to read it and maybe print it out, but it saves you postage, which is huge anymore, and they get it right away. So that's a nice thing to be able to do. Or do any of your visitor centers do that?
We don't have the budget to mail out industry partner material, but we do have an online state vacation guide people can download. We also have a budget to mail out both CDOT maps and Colorado State vacation guides, but we do that from our mailing house. We don't do that from the centers. We ask that all of our industry partners, while we carry your material, we do have some strict brochure criteria that I can share with you. Obviously, I think ours is a little bit more all-encompassing, being as we're trying to represent the entire state.
And I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
I get your brochures, I get the maps, that sort of thing. But I'm just talking about if we had a local, you know, some of the local attractions, it would be a nice option to be able to do that.
Sure, and I mean, that kind of ties back into how you're gonna use that possible visitor data that you can collect. You know, maybe that's how you're going to interact with your visitors once they leave the area. But yeah, I mean, online guides are great, absolutely, and we do make our state vacation guide available electronically. Yes.
It would be nice to see an update on the travelers between Pueblo and Lamar and so forth. Because I had two questions really. We would like to see how much of an impact marijuana has had there, because Pueblo is a capital, I think, of Colorado for selling marijuana. And also, is that tax revenue you have up there, is that part of that marijuana infested? I mean,
No, we don't see any of the sales tax from marijuana sales. Honestly, as a citizen, I'd rather see that go towards roads and bridges, but I mean, it may be an option down the road. As far as tourism and marijuana, because it's a question we get all the time, it is kind of a touchy subject. There are some folks in the industry that think, why are we not promoting it? And there's some folks that are against it. So we really look to the governor's office to instruct us on how to proceed. Right now, considering it's not legal federally, it is not legal for us to carry material promoting retail marijuana sales in our state visitor centers, because we see so many out-of-state and international travelers. We do make sure that we have the latest and greatest information as to, you know, what the laws are. We want to reiterate, don't use marijuana and drive. Once you cross the state lines, you're under their jurisdiction. And so we really try to focus on the safety aspect of that. We did have a study a while back. I don't know, you may have seen the article in the Post, but it was a little vague. The study said that 40% of people that come to Colorado are swayed by marijuana being legal. The problem there was nobody asked, well, is it positively or negatively? So that might be something that we look to delve a little bit further into in the future. Right now, I would say, yes, it is influencing some travelers, but our office really doesn't think it's a huge motivating factor in people coming to Colorado. Yes?
A $20 million figure, and I don't remember what it was labeled, whether it was just visitor spending or whatever in Otero County.
Yes.
Is there any differentiation between people that are here on business, or what percent of that $20 million is actually tourism type money?
Well, the overall spending would be pulled again from tourism businesses. So lodging tax, a percentage of restaurant sales, and then local activities.
But that could be somebody here on business, correct?
It sure could,
Yeah.
it sure could, but we really don't know a better way of differentiating. That's one thing we can drill down with is the visitor data. You know, when people leave their zip code, we can look at not just their exact city, but we can look at their neighborhood and what the average annual salary is in that neighborhood. And it seems very invasive, but this is what we can do these days with this data. It's pretty remarkable. You can even go as far to see if your email you're given by the visitor is linked to a major credit card and pay the credit card companies to find out if they're buying dog food. If, you know, it's a little creepy, but I mean, it can be done. It can be done. And, you know, again, I haven't seen the benefit of drilling down quite that far using state dollars, but, you know, maybe down the road. I mean, the more information we have, the more prepared we are. So, sir?
Maybe to just build off your comment, I mean, we get business people who are here on business all the time who come out to the fort too. I mean, business is what brings them down, but they also can turn into tourists.
Right.
And they'll also come to the fort and say, this place is great, I gotta come back with my family. So it's, yeah, you still wanna build on that. The people that are here on business, you wanna try to attract back to come back as tourists.
And I understand that. Some of the, as I mentioned to you, I'm on the side that says, okay, prove it to me. I'm taking in information and everything that's coming in today. I'm trying to get a clear view of what is the potential for this. And the fort is the absolute quintessential tourist attraction around here. The others are not quite as, I mean, when you get to the Kiva, that's also attractive, but it's pretty small compared to that. Otero Museum, the dinosaur tracks would be, I mean, that's, you've got to almost intend to come here to spend that much time to go out there and back in a day. And so that's the skepticism on the side of the need for the visitor center, or the position that I'm taking is, okay, I'm willing to, I've got an open mind, but prove to me that we've got enough tourism here to, and we're gonna have to be if that was all tourism money, how much more are we gonna increase then by adding a visitor center and stuff? So that's believe me, that the Bent's Fort is an absolute treasure chest of, you know, for the area here to draw people in, to have to keep them for an extra day or something, so.
We do know that the number one reason people are coming to Colorado are for the outdoor and historic offerings. So it's not that much of a select, again, niche travel group. It really is fairly all-encompassing. So that's a big driver. What else were we? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Were there any other questions? Oh, again?
I have, we've been using these words interchangeably, so I'm just interested in your viewpoint of it. We've been using visitor center and welcome center.
Mhm.
What is the distinction in your mind?
Oh, I'm sorry. There really is none. Our welcome centers are just that, visitor centers. I personally think welcome center sounds a little bit better, but it's not a term that the state can legally trademark. But same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. Yes.
When those original welcome centers were put into place, and the choice of locations of where those were done at, and I don't mean each community, but I mean specific location, whether they were in a downtown or out near the interstate. Was it your board that determined that? Was it a combination of each of those cities that determined that? How how did that take place as to where those were actually set up and reside at?
Well, I think it was definitely a partnership. Again, out of our 10 state centers, 2 are a partnership with CDOT, where they actually own the building and they help pay for facility operations and things like that, and then the state helps with the other expenses. The rest, I contract through the local community. So the buildings are owned either by the city, well, I think I would say in most cases by the city, in one case the county. So there's really not a lot of overhead. We do have one situation up in Fort Collins where we partner with the Fort Collins CDB, and we have a lease with CSU at one of their facilities right off I-25. But not to get too far away from your question, I mean, we're not in any major cities. We did used to have a welcome center at Red Rocks, but we don't anymore. Visit Denver does have Denver pretty well covered. I mean, these are all very small towns. If any of you have ever been to Dinosaur, Colorado, you can attest these are not, bustling thoroughfares. But the one thing they have in common is they really give us an opportunity to capture that traveler. They're easy on, easy off. They're located on major entry points into the state. They gave us the best opportunity to capture the most traffic. And that was obviously budget played a part, but that was hands down the biggest incentive. Yeah.
And say, on those that are on or near an interstate, are a lot of those welcome centers right at an exit of an interstate, off of an interstate? Or are they somewhere down the road where you've got to travel a little bit to get to them?
No, they're all right off the major interstate, within, I would say, a quarter mile at the most from the off-ramp. So, yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's pretty obvious why we did that. The further out we are to the Colorado border, the biggest chance we have of capturing that visitor and influencing the rest of their trip. So we wanted to get them right at the beginning of entering Colorado. Yes.
That's the one observation, all of them, about 3 are right on the border of Colorado. I'm trying to also, are there other visitor centers? So these are all state, what's the term I'm looking, sponsored or state?
State welcome centers.
State welcome
Yeah.
centers. So are there other welcome centers in Colorado then?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
And
how
those-
many?
Yeah, those are operated by the local destination management organization or the city, and they're typically funded with lodging tax dollars.
Which is what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
So I'm trying to, the other thing, I guess, trying to figure out, we almost have to be on the person, what we're trying to earmark, or the person that we're trying to get to stay, to advertise or coerce, or whatever the term you want to use, to stay overnight or spend a couple of days here, are apparently the ones that are gonna fly in, because any of these others would be able to, if they're interested in tourism type activities, could stop at any of these other facilities that you've got here. And we could have, I presume that we can put, if we come up with a brochure regarding Otero County, we can have a place in any one of these 10.
Yes, and you do.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Broncos in the back.
Thank you. How many, go Broncos,
Absolutely.
how many applications for a state welcome center or visitor center do you get on average in a year?
In a year? Oh, that's a good question. Well, it really depends. I would say I've been with the CTO about 6 years. I've seen maybe 8 applications.
It's not something that most communities are trying to do because it's already tied up pretty much on the perimeters. It would
Well,
appear.
yes, and our most recent center to open was in 2011, and that was in Silverthorne. It's a partnership with Craig Realty Group. They're a corporation out of California, but they manage both the Castle Rock and the Silverthorne outlets. So we were able to get some great space, new build right on I-70, halfway between both Fruita on the western slope and Burlington on the eastern side. So we were able to kind of capture traffic at that midway point, and also for the first time have a presence in a ski community where we can hopefully sway that winter traveler to come back to Colorado during different seasons. We also, I'll just touch on this, we see a lot of international ski traffic at that center, so we're able to reach a different type of visitor. With the strength of the American dollar the past year or so, we've seen a big cut in international travel, but that's also something I can share with you. I have all that data from both Trinidad and Lamar. and I would say a lot of that traffic's coming through on motor coaches, at least on these major roadways. Back of the room again?
And just a follow-up to that, then are they still under the same, I guess, set of rules, if we wanna call them that, as the other welcome centers? If Lahana or Steamboat or some other community wants to put information in that visitor center, are they required to put it in, or do they have to, can they go to a pay-as-you-play?
For non-state centers, or for, I'm sorry, for
Yeah,
state centers?
for like Silverthorne and Alamosa, would they be
Yes.
required to put any community in Colorado that wanted to get in that?
Yes,
Thank you.
they still follow the overall state brochure guidelines.
Perfect.
I won't go too
That's
far in, okay. Yeah,
Good. All I
absolutely.
wanted to know, thank
Yeah.
you.
We wanna make sure that we're representing, the material produced by like the main tourism entity in each organization. So if your local chamber of commerce or your economic development group or your, tourism board has a piece, that's going to be required and it's going to be carried in all 10 state centers. If you're a local business and, you're an outfitter that we have a lot of information for, it can be based on space, okay.
And one last comment for even Randall, people that don't know, that all of those welcome centers around the state do familiarization tours, and they come to Lahana, and they line up tours to the area of Trinidad and Lamar and all of that. So, and they're schooled in this area. They're taught what to say, and they go to the grasslands, and they go to the fort, and they go to the Kiva, and they go to the museum and do all those kinds of things, so that they can help tell people, stop down the road at that visitor center if there is one, so.
Thank you for mentioning that. If you are thinking about staffing a possible center with volunteers, that's another thing to think about is volunteer enhancement. What's their incentive? Some folks just really like getting out and talking about the community, meeting folks. We also offer events, annual trips around the state. We divide the state into 7 travel regions, and we make sure that our travel counselors both experience activities in that region and are given updated information. So, yes, thank you. That's a great part of what we do.
That's all I have, and go Broncos.
Good work.
We aren't done yet, we're gonna get it again next year.
Like that attitude.
Yeah, so do I.
Whenever there's a nationally broadcast game played at home in Denver, if it snows, we see an uptick in ski traffic, right, Pam?
Right.
Is that your understanding? Okay. Okay, well, obviously I have a lot of data, so if you have any questions, just let me know. I've got visitation numbers for you, sir, that I'll share with Pam as well.
Anybody else got any questions? One question I got while she's doing numbers, and since we got Rick and Colleen both here, do you guys have any numbers for a year, how many people come through your facilities?
Yeah,
You
we
got
have,
an off the wall figure in your head that you think it's about? I'm just curious, I mean. we've
this
got-
last year we had about 28,000.
Okay.
This, in 2015, we were around 28,000.
Colleen, you have any ideas?
It's not hard for me to get. What we do is we have trail registers at every one of our sites, all over the Comanche, so some are in Springfield, but it's not hard to, get those numbers. I mean, they're all entered into the computer. It gives us things like where folks are from and that sort of thing that we can pull a lot of data off of. It's thousands. It's not like the fort, of course, but, I imagine we see anywhere from 10 to 15,000 across the entire Comanche in a year. That includes our tours. So we take 45 people every weekend down there for about 16 weekends out of the year.
Yeah, and
Anybody-
we have, we obviously have that information going back for years and years, so, yeah. If you need any of it, just let us know.
And we talked about visitor, but we really have a large, and they are visitors, we have a lot of people come here to hunt every year, and thousands. I mean, with all of our, it's easy to hunt, we have a big area of government land where they don't have to have permissions, it's huge. And we have a large wildlife population in this end of the state, and that's big, and I don't think people always realize how how big that is for our area.
Hunting is huge, and I will say, if you look at the overall tourism office budget, we do spend the most in summer, because that's where we see our biggest return on investment. But, at least with our visitation numbers in our welcome centers, we have seen visitation going up in August and September, mostly September the past few years, for leaf peepers or people coming through to see the foliage as well. So, yeah, fall's a great opportunity for a lot of areas.
Lynn, did you have?
Hey, one final comment I'll make. I get into particularly the Trinidad Welcome Center pretty frequently, and one of the things that I'll make a comment that when you go through that area, a lot of that brochures and information is kind of by region or district. When you come into southeastern Colorado, our section by far is the smallest amount of input of brochures and information, and and there's always Bent's Fort and the Comanche grasslands, but personally to me we could do a much better job overall, not just La Junta but all of southeastern Colorado, in putting together more brochures and more inviting things that convey what goes on in our area that I don't think over the years we've done a great job of promoting and marketing ourselves.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, there is less material for that area because I think there are less businesses in the area, obviously. But, again, I'm very happy to pass along any information, anything you're looking to promote in your region to our travel counselors. So we are making sure to hit those points throughout the state. We also, just to do a little plug for Colorado.com, is our state website. It's mostly outward facing for the visitor. We do have a pretty robust industry partners section, and that's where I can pull the correct sales tax figures for you. But we do see over 7 million visitors a year on Colorado.com, and we offer free tourism-related business listings and event listings. So. And Pam knows all of this, and she's very, very active with us. But yes, that's an opportunity for any of the local businesses in the community that want some free representation.
Have you partnered with Department of Ag to promote the agriculture in Colorado, especially on the western slope, and then following the listeria outbreak? I know that there was a big push from Department of Ag to really market the region.
Yeah. So we're the only state with dedicated agritourism funding, and I believe originally when that program was set up, some of the funding did come out of the Department of Ag. But yes, we do work with them. Not so much on the PR front, because that's not really something that with a listeria outbreak, we do have a great PR team, and they run point on any natural emergency, natural disasters, things like that. But we work more on the marketing side, like you mentioned, visitor-ready farms and residences where people can come into the area and see what it's like to work the land, raise animals, and that has been pretty fruitful, I would think, in the past few years. We've seen a lot of businesses get involved with the CTO. We've also seen an influx of interest as the farm-to-table movement spreads. So yes, we do.
Often do you meet with your welcome center managers or?
Yeah, quite a bit. It's difficult. I work out of Denver, and obviously we're not together every day, but we have a couple annual meetings where we get together. Our next meeting is coming up here in April. We have the Governor's Tourism Conference every year in September. This year we'll be in Breckenridge. We get together then. And I'm out on the road quite a bit. We also do monthly conference calls, and we're constantly on the phone and sharing emails. So, but it is challenging. Yeah.
Do you make it a point to visit every tour? Every welcome center?
Absolutely.
At least once during the year?
Yes. I do.
Anybody else have any questions? I want to thank you, Kelly, for
Okay.
coming by.
Could you put your slide up for the information? It was only up there just for a brief moment before it was changed. I didn't get it. Thank
There,
you.
there it is for a long moment.
Thank you.
I wanna thank everybody for coming, you know. Gives us a little more input on a little bit of decision-making, I think. I think we'll have Pam, I haven't discussed this with her, you know, we just yesterday went through the 2 buildings again that we've been looking at. Pam will set something up, I'll have her set something up, we'll all get together again and maybe course what we thought about the 2 locations again after everybody went through and we had the floor plan on the southeast building. So Pam will get an email out on that and we'll get together again and kind of go from there. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Well, thanks again, guys. And for the board members, the tourism board members, we do need to vote on the